peeps, it's Trina. It is no surprise around here that I am a huge fan of Not a Drop to Drink by Mindy McGinnis. But I read this book about 2 years ago, before I was ever on BookTube, so I don't have a proper review on it. I did just reread this, so the material is fresh on my mind, and I wanted to make a review or something for this book because it's like the most talked about book on my channel, so I need to have a video dedicated solely to it, right? Now, Not a Drop to Drink is the first book in a duology. The sequel is called In a Handful of Dust, and I thought about waiting, rereading this one and doing a whole series duology review over both of the books, but In a Handful of Dust is actually the first book review that I ever recorded on my channel. So I actually do have a review up for this one, and it has like a full, long, spoilery discussion section. It does feature very silly, awkward newbie Trina, but if you want to know more details about this book or hear me discuss it, I'll put a link to that one down below. I didn't want to repeat that review, so instead, I'm telling you 5 reasons why you should read Not a Drop to Drink. Number 1, you should read this book if you want a really realistic feeling apocalypse story. This is a post-apocalyptic survival story minus any kind of supernatural element to it. There are no zombies, there are no aliens. It feels like a very real representation of what would happen if we woke up tomorrow and suddenly there was no electricity or clean running water. What would happen? In this world, civilization has basically collapsed, but we follow a young girl and her mother that are surviving. They have shelter, they grow and hunt their own food, and they have a pond which they purify the water from, so they basically are self-sustained and living on their own. And the plot of this book is dealing largely with interacting with other people. What do you do when you come across other groups of survivors in a world like this? Would you trade with them or help them out, or would you just shoot first and ask questions later because you're afraid they might want to take what is yours? Reason number 2 to read this book is if you want a book that has appeal to both YA and adult audiences. This is technically a YA book because the main character, Lynn, that we are following the entire time is 16 years old, but the other characters in this book are mostly adults. There's one other teenage character, there is a child, and there are like 4 or 5 adult characters that we interact with pretty heavily, and I just loved that age range of characters that we got to see that and see the interaction between age groups. In addition, Mindy's writing does not shy away from anything gritty or dark. The tone and the characters and the thing that they're dealing with in this book would have a lot of appeal to adult audiences as well, and I feel like adults aren't going to pick this one up because it is marketed as YA, but I really highly think if you read either or genre, it's a great one to pick up. Reason number 3 to read this book is if you like reverse character arcs, and what I mean by this is that typically in stories we start out with a more naive main character, and throughout the course of the story, if they're put into really terrible situations, like for example, Katniss in the Hunger Games is a good one off the top of my head. She's thrust into a situation where she has to decide if she's going to take the lives of other people, and usually that's a big struggle, and you spend a lot of time justifying how you're becoming hardened and tougher. But Lynn in Not a Drop to Drink is the reverse of that. She has grown up in this world, and she has a very no-nonsense, cold-hearted mother, basically. She's been killing people since she was 9 years old, and we start out and Lynn is pretty cold-hearted and very closed off emotionally. But as the course of this book goes on, Lynn's journey is letting her walls down and giving people a chance. She basically grows a conscience over the course of this book, and she does learn that she sometimes has to let people in or spare their lives. And that's just such a wonderful journey to go through with a character. It's so refreshing because it's the opposite of what I'm used to reading, at least, so I love that about it. Reason 4 is because this is not a chosen one story. Lynn is not the most special person in all the land. She is not the only person that can stop whatever bad thing is happening from happening. There isn't a big fight against evil, and when she does have conflicts, she's not always the best at them, and sometimes things go wrong. It's not like Lynn against the world. She's not the savior in this situation. She's just the character that we're reading from with very real skills and sometimes very real consequences. Reason 5 is if you're looking for a story that is not super heavy on the romance. And there is a romance in this story, but I felt like it progressed in a very natural way. There are like maybe 3 scenes with a lot of flirtation or romance element to it, and they are kind of heavy-handed because these characters are so awkward. They have no idea what they're doing, or Lynn doesn't even know what flirting is, so watching her try is very funny, and because it is awkward like that, it does stick out. So I remembered the romance being more than it actually was. When I reread the book, I was very happily surprised to see that there were only like 3 scenes of it. I loved that that element didn't take over the entire plot. So if you don't like reading YA stories where the main character meets a love interest and then all of a sudden the story turns into a romance, that is definitely not the case here, so I would highly recommend it if you're looking for something that is less heavy on the romance. Those are 5 reasons why I think you should read Not a Drop to Drink. I could probably sit here and point out 100 reasons because I love this book so much, but I feel like everything I like about it can be summed up in those 5 main points. I would love to hear if you want to read this book, or if you have read it, I'd love to know what you've thought about it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the comments. Bye!